I'm Iris Muller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and a proud mom of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
And I'm Alma Schneider, a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mom of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new. This is Two Moms, No Fluff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Moms, No Fluff. Today, my podcast partner, Alma Schneider, is not here, but instead of her, I'm interviewing her daughter, Asa Zaltzman, in another episode about being a sibling to a person with a disability. I'm Iris Muller, and I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today. And for those who've been with us for a long, long time, thank you for continuing to listen to our podcast. And for those who are joining us today for the first time, welcome. This is the place where you discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities. So, Asa, I'm so thrilled that you agreed to be interviewed today. Thank you.
Me too.
Yes, and Asa, I would maybe start by letting you introduce yourself to our listeners, those who do not know you, which is the majority, I think.
Okay, I'm Asa. I'm 16, go to high school, like to hang out with my friends. My brother has Prader-Willi syndrome.
And can you maybe describe to the audience what is Prader-Willi syndrome for people who don't know what it is?
It's a disability where he is just always hungry. So that and just other behavioral problems.
And I have to ask you a question. Usually when you introduce yourself, would you mention that you have a sibling with a disability?
Not when I introduce myself, no. But on this, I thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, I know. I was just wondering if this is one of those things that is essential to, your self-introduction, because I know for me as a mom, it's almost like if I don't talk about it in the first few sentences when I meet someone new, it's kind of it feels almost like I'm hiding something.
Really? No, I never say that immediately.
Yeah. And for you, kind of being Lincoln's sister, what does Prader-Willi means for your day-to-day? How does his disability affect you as a sibling?
Definitely makes things harder a lot of times. We have to lock the doors to my kitchen all the time, or when he's home, which is like almost always. But yeah, that he can be sassy, different situations, but yeah, that's kind of it, I think.
And for you as the younger sibling, do you think that having Lincoln as your sibling affected your childhood in some way?
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Can you describe a little bit in which ways?
Yeah, I think that not a lot of other kids, especially like at a young age, have like much responsibility in that sense, and it's a dangerous disorder or disability that he has. So keeping him safe is really important. So it's kind of everyone in the family's job to like help keep him safe. So it's a lot riding on like keeping the doors locked, which is like hard to remember when you're little. We used to have like locks on the cabinets and the fridges, things like that. We have to keep the front door locked, the back door locked. So I think that responsibility and having to deal with just like his behavioral issues when you're young is definitely like a skill and something that not a lot of other people have, I think.
And when you reflect on your earlier childhood, do you think that your life was in many ways different than the childhood of your peers or other friends?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways I was a pretty like I had a normal childhood, and I still did all the things, like, it didn't prohibit me from doing anything that, like, I wanted to do. I was still out, like, doing sports and all that stuff, but I think our family dynamic was definitely a lot different than everyone else's at home, definitely.
In what ways?
Um, just the responsibility of it all, I think, is just the stress and the pressure of having to, like, have that on your back always, having to, like, keep him safe always is definitely something that other kids don't have to deal with, and
Yeah,
that can come in other forms, I think.
like what?
Like, I mean, other families, I think, have other struggles, but that was one specific.
Yeah, I think for those who do not know you, like Asa is extremely mature, compassionate, and responsible young
Thank you.
person. And I know you from much younger age, and I remember how you were earlier on.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm wondering about that, like. Do you feel that you're more sensitive than the average, let's say, teenager, and more aware to kind of social issues and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm definitely not perfect with all of those things, um, and I'm not necessarily like a social justice warrior or any of those things, but I think I definitely things like kids that are just different. I think what comes up a lot in school is there are kids that don't necessarily like have a label like autism or uh, any or Down syndrome, things that like are like clearly special needs. I think kids a lot of times are just like, oh, they're weird and make fun of them. But I think I was always like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I don't think they're being provocative or anything. I've just always been sensitive to the fact that I think it needs like a second look, and it's not always just like they're trying to be a bad kid. So I
right.
think that happens a lot.
I want to ask you something kind of, what do you think that we as adults can do to better our society, to better maybe explain this message that you are, so well aware of, that so other teens that are not necessarily siblings of children with disabilities would get it as well, what is so natural to you?
Uh, I'm not sure. I think things that usually seem to help, we have like assemblies and stuff where they'll show like specific stories and like insight to like one kid. Um, if there's stuff like bullying, like we've had assemblies where like parents come in and talk about that. So I think just like a deeper understanding of what it's like their struggles. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think there's just a specific idea I'm thinking of is just kids that come off like uh what is it? Like they're just like trying to get a rise out of people. I think just an understanding that it's more than it seems. I don't really know,
Yeah.
but I think just more conversation.
Right. I think for a lot of parents that have children with disabilities, the phenomena of bullying and having their kids treated kind of unfairly, especially in light of behaviors that are disability related that they cannot control, this is kind of
Mhm.
things that we fear most. And sometimes I think that if everybody had a sibling with a disability, then our whole society would be much more understanding and compassionate. And I'm always
Yeah.
wondering, how can we like relay the message so other teens and other children can be a little bit more inclusive, not
Yeah.
in terms of like building another ramp, because that's not
Yeah.
enough. We need to actually
And
you
it is very frustrating to see because so many kids get bullied. So many kids with special needs get bullied, and I think that's it's just so frustrating because it's so easy to not, and it's just so easy. And I'm not even talking about like be kind and all this stuff. Of course, be kind, but just to not go out of your way and be horrible is just so easy. and it's so frustrating to see all the time just like outward bullying like that.
Um, Asa, do you think that your kind of childhood and life with the sibling with a disability would affect your future career, or do you think it would have an influence on what you choose to do in the future?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. I think some part of me likes to do my own thing and not uh have to bring what I think of it as stress like into other, but it's not just stress. It's just I don't know. The way I see it, I kind of like my space from it when I have to deal with it a lot. Not deal with it. Deal with the hard parts.
Um, when I was about to have my second child, I always thought about how would it be for him to grow up in a house that, you know, in many ways evolves around the endless needs of his sister. And I want to ask you that you grew up in a house that also had that challenge. How does it feel like? Does it feel as if you're like a second violin to someone else? Does it feel like your needs are um are met or not? Like what's your thought for other parents that are maybe considering thinking
Mhm.
about having another child after a child with a disability?
I think I think I am pretty outspoken about what I need, and I think I'm like, when I need something, for the most part, I ask for it, and I think my parents are were pretty good about making sure that, like, I was getting attention, the things I need, but it still, of course, can feel hard sometimes because his needs take up a very like, a lot of my parents' time, um, but I think just frequent conversations with other kids, just letting them know, asking about their day, asking how they are, what they need, and just making sure that they know that, like, their needs are also important just goes a long way, definitely, for me. But yeah.
So open communication as a strategy.
Yeah.
And uh, do you get do you think now and in previous years like uh, enough maybe quality time or whatever it is that you mentioned that you voice your needs, is this something that was kind of a strategy that this family agreed on, that you would name it when you need it and you would get it, or you kind of developed this as a strategic mechanism to survive
I
in the midst of everything?
I've just never felt like honestly, I've never felt like, "Oh, they're like," or at least when I was little, like, "Oh, they have so much going on, like, I'm not gonna, like, insert myself." Like, I was the youngest, or I am the youngest, so I've always just kind of felt, like, entitled in that way to my parents' attention, and I've never been like 'cause I didn't feel, like, deep sad and, like, sympathy for them because it's like, he's just my brother, it's just, like, I didn't really fully understand how much energy it took, like, to raise him, but, um, I think yeah. So I kinda just saw it as he's my brother and, like, he's getting attention, but I also need attention. And as I get older, I am a little bit more wary about, um, my stuff because I think I'm fine, and I know that it's a lot of effort and he needs a lot of help with things. I'm not sure if that answered your question, I don't really remember.
Yeah, actually, it made me a bit optimistic because I'm always still wondering about my own children and how well do we do actually with dividing attention and answering everybody's needs in
Yeah,
a way that is never equal, but is maybe satisfactory, that everybody gets what they need, even
yeah,
though, you know, one person's needs are bigger than the other. But I think that open communication is a really, really good strategy. And I don't know, like, if you're naturally assertive and vocal, or that other kids naturally develop this skill in that environment of having
mhm,
a child with disability as a sibling. But that was encouraging to hear. It's a it's a journey, and I think that a lot of a lot of young individuals that grew up with another sibling with special needs, and I don't have a research to support it. It's just my own interaction with families. It just seemed that they're always a little bit better adapted than other teens, and a little bit better adapted as children in terms of both understanding social situations very well and knowing how to function within them. They can kind of detect stress from a distance and know when to pull back or when to get in and involved in the scene. It's very interesting. Do you feel like that personally?
I definitely feel like I recognize when I was younger, I would like I've become very like slick because there's a lot of like communication with your eyes, with your parents, just like oh, don't say that, like that's gonna start a fight or things like that, or like getting a snack and making sure he doesn't know it because he'll be upset about it. Just tiny things like that, I think, gave me a lot of just like I don't know the word. Just I don't know, but I
I call
see
it
that like
like sensitivity and the ability to read between the lines. You need a
yeah, read between the
microfacial
lines. Yes,
expression.
I'm really good about reading between the lines, and I noticed that like a lot of people don't learn that because like that is a weird kind of like survivalist like skill to have as like an 8-year-old. So of course that's not gonna like be a thing that you see in other kids, but that definitely is something that I've become equipped with.
Awesome. Asa, do you have any recommendations for parents who have, a child who's younger than the child with disability in terms of what to do to better support and be a better parent to the child without the disability?
I think showing up can be hard, situational. I think if you can't for any specific reason for the other kid, but I think just communication is really important. Just conversations about like that you like have the time to talk to them, and if they have issues like that they're valid. I think a big thing um that I think about is like, oh, like this is an issue, but it's nothing that's compared to like what they're dealing with Lincoln. um so just validation that our issues are just as maybe not as important, but they still matter and like they need to be like dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an important message. Um, Asa, is there anything else that you would like to share about your life as a sibling, your life in general, or something that is important for our listeners that are mostly parents of kids with disabilities and community members that, try to make this world a better place with us? Do you have any messages about inclusion and about disability that you want to share?
Yeah, it's not awful all the time. It can be hard, but it's also great, and it's made me and my siblings really able to adapt in other situations, and it can be really hard, but it's also like we all love each other, and it's good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Elsa, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for this interview today and for
of
sharing your
course.
experience. I also want to thank you for being such an awesome individual and
You too.
making our society a better place, really, by just
Thank you.
being who you are. So I want to also invite our listeners, if you want to ask Asa any questions about this interview or her experiences, or if you have any other questions or suggestions to us for our podcast, Two Moms No Fluff, please go to our website or our Facebook page, and we welcome any and all questions and stories from your sibling lives and your family life in general. Thank you very, very much for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.